Hey everybody, welcome to Crazy Tech Lab, and I've got a great video for you today because I am going to be checking out a brand new low profile cooler from bequiet. So this is going to be a great video for all you small form factor and mini-ITX fans. It is called the Pure Rock LP, LP standing for low profile obviously. So we're going to be doing what a lot of other websites and influencers don't seem to have been doing, which is actually comparing it against a kind of a cooler in the same class, or actually doing some comparisons at all. I saw some reviews and showcases of the product out there that didn't even compare it against anything else. So it's like, why would I buy it if I don't even know how well it cools? But also people using all-in-one liquid coolers and massive air coolers in the graphs as well. That's not what I want to see from a review of a low profile cooler, especially one like this. What I want to know is how it compares to this bad boy here, which is the Noctua L9, specifically the L9A, because we are going to be using AMD's fantastic new Ryzen 9 7900, the 65 watt version of the 7900X, to see how both of these coolers fare against a pretty powerful processor, but it's a processor that is well within the limits of both of these CPUs. So before we get to that though, here's a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor today is scdkey.com, where right now you can get some great deals on software such as Windows 10, Windows 11 and Microsoft Office. Even better news is that I have a discount code to share with you guys that will get you even more money off this software. So Microsoft Windows 10 Pro, for example, which is fully upgradable for free to Windows 11 if you want to do that. All you have to do is click buy now, enter the code CRT25 into the promotion code box, click apply, and the UK price, for example, will drop from £17 all the way down to just £12.76, and you'll see similar discounts elsewhere in other currencies as well. Once purchased, you'll want to head to your order page and copy the Windows 10 Pro key shown at the bottom of the page. When you're in Windows, you want to move your mouse over to the Start button, right click, go to Settings, then Update and Security, and then move up to Activation, and finally, click on Change Your Product Key, copy and paste your brand new product key into the box, click Next, then click Activate, and your Windows 10 installation is now activated. Finally, you can do exactly the same thing with Office 2021 Professional by clicking the Buy button using code CR25 again, click Apply, and you'll get a hefty discount on Office as well. Thanks again to SCD Key for sponsoring this video, and you can see a whole bunch more links and discounts in the description below. Now, the mashup between these two CPU coolers is very, very interesting, and for a number of reasons. First and foremost, they both cost about the same. There's just a few dollars in it. The bequiet has a slight edge if you want to go for the black version of the L9A, but if you want to go for the beige version, the L9 actually ends up being slightly cheaper, but again, there's not that much in it. It's like $5 or $10 at most. Now, both coolers obviously sitting within a certain size. The bequiet sits right within the 92mm fan dimension, so it's no bigger than that. The L9A does stretch out a little bit from those 92mm dimensions, but there are still going to be zero compatibility issues with pretty much any mini-ITX motherboard out there. I don't think there are any compatibility issues that have been mentioned either with the Intel or the AMD versions of this cooler. Speaking of socket compatibility, bequiet absolutely winning on that front because it is compatible with LGA 1700 and socket AM5 right out of the box, as well as previous versions of Intel and AMD sockets such as socket AM5 and LGA 1200. That is not the case with the L9. So I believe with LGA 1700, you need to buy a specific version of that cooler that can't be adapted to any other sockets. The socket AM4 version that we've actually got here requires an adapter kit that you can either get for free from Noctua or you can buy it separately to be able to be compatible with socket AM5. So that's not great either. Also, I think the original LGA versions of the cooler prior to LGA 1700 can be adapted to AMD sockets, but the LGA 1700 cannot. So you can't buy the AM5 adapter kit, I don't think, and use that with the 1700 socket, but feel free to correct me on that. So not great compatibility when it comes from the Noctua, especially if you feel like you might want to switch sockets in future, for example, from an old Intel to socket AM5 or something like that. You can do that with the bequiet, and that's quite compelling because it costs about the same. Now, in terms of stuff that you actually get in the box, the Noctua is slightly better here because you get a separate tube of thermal paste, while the thermal paste is pre-applied on the bequiet, which I'm okay with in terms of water blocks and large processor coolers when you're dealing with larger cases. But when it's mini-ITX, it can be a bit fiddly to get the processor sat in place. But with the bequiet, the thermal paste is pre-applied, so Noctua maybe has a slight advantage there. The Noctua has a low noise adapter as well, which might be useful if you don't really fancy going into the EFI and manually limiting fan speeds or tuning fan curves and that kind of stuff. So that's a small advantage for Noctua. Again though, the bequiet has a big advantage in terms of ease of installation, because the pins that go through socket AM5, for example, which is what we tested it on today, they actually kind of screw into those pins or threaded holes in the AM5 socket, which means the pins are held in place. And that means that when you come to install it, you don't have to hold the pin in place at the same time as holding the cooler, which is just a complete nightmare. Unfortunately, you do have to do that with the Noctua cooler, so the bequiet has a much easier installation. So that's pretty much it as far as the direct comparisons go. In terms of height, what we'll do is just bring up the specifications of both of the coolers so you can have a look at them now, and I will talk about them. So the dimensions are, as I mentioned, slightly longer for the Noctua. It's 114 millimeters long and 92 millimeters wide, whereas the bequiet is 92 millimeters wide and long all round. However, the Noctua is slightly shorter at 37 centimeters, while the bequiet is slightly taller at 45 millimeters. As long as your CPU-kühler height clearance is 45 millimeters? Yeah, 45, sorry, I've forgotten about it there. 45 millimeters or taller, then you will be able to fit the bequiet cooler. So without further ado, let's crack on with the testing. So starting off with the cooling performance, and we have a CPU delta T's here, which is basically the absolute temperature recorded in Ryzen Master minus the ambient temperature at the time. So that just basically factors in changes in the ambient temperature over time. But to be honest, both coolers were tested within an hour of each other and the temperature didn't actually change there. So a delta T of 55 degrees for the bequiet and 3 degrees cooler for the Noctua. Now, in terms of noise, the Noctua actually registered 41 decibels from a couple of feet away, while the bequiet sat at 42 decibels. So the bequiet was slightly louder, but I have to say the sound quality was actually slightly better from the bequiet. So it had a slightly less of a drone, even though the airflow noise was slightly louder. The airflow noise was also slightly more pleasant on the bequiet cooler. So which of these two would I go for in my own personal mini-ITX rig? I think that's a good question to start the conclusion with. And while I love both of them, I think for me, the bequiet just has the edge. And it's not so much in terms of the cooling performance, because it was obviously a couple of degrees warmer than the Noctua L9A. It's more to do with compatibility. So the fact that it's compatible with socket AM5, LGA 1700, and all the previous sockets from AMD and Intel mainstream desktop sockets, that is, that's just a real advantage for me. It just means that I don't have to worry about going out and getting adapter kits or whether my future setup will be compatible. I know that it will be compatible with this cooler, at least until CPU sockets change again, which might be happening in the next year or two. We don't know yet. So for that reason alone, I think that warrants the bequiet over the Noctua. I also like the fact that the sound quality was slightly better. It's not a huge difference. And the Noctua was actually slightly quieter in terms of raw decibels, but the actual sound quality was ever so slightly better from the bequiet. Now, that doesn't mean that the bequiet is perfect. I don't really like pre-applied thermal paste, if I'm honest, because it's just too easy to damage the stuff that's been pre-applied, especially in a small, fiddly, tight, cramped mini-ITX system. So I do like the fact that the Noctua includes a tube of thermal paste. However, thermal paste isn't exactly expensive, is it? You can get a tube of either company's thermal paste or something like Arctic MX4 for just a couple of bucks. So that's not really a major issue. For me, another issue going against the Noctua was the ease of installation. That's much, much easier with the Be Quiet. So combined with the fact that they're both pretty much the same price, I think the Be Quiet just about wins overall, even though it wasn't actually the best performing cooler here. So both coolers, absolutely fantastic. No real issues with either of them. I just prefer the Be Quiet overall because of its compatibility, the sound quality, and the fact that it is much easier to install while still remaining very, very compact. So that's it from me today. I'd like to thank Be Quiet for sending over its Pure Rock LP. You can see links to both of these products, buy links that is, in the description below if you want to check them out. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on my channel. It means a lot to have your support, and we've got more great content coming up very, very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.